Hello, everyone. Welcome to the episode 6 recap of Survivor Calgary. Brains versus Brawn versus Belligerents. Kendall, how are you feeling after that app?
It was an emotional one. I feel like there was it was spicy, it was emotional, it was a whole range of emotions in this one. Yeah, how about you?
To some degree, I think we've kind of had this little mini arc of Bose just losing and getting pummeled into the ground. And this is kind of, in some ways, the emotional conclusion of that. We see Malone finally taken out. We see Sydney survive all the way through these three tribal councils, and we see these three brains make it out together. Maybe a little bit exhausted, but
Yeah,
still as tight as ever.
yeah, yeah. Which is pretty impressive, honestly, that they have made it, that the three of them have made it as far as they have. But, you know, um, as somebody who would never, ever, ever get placed on the bronze team, it's it feels hard to see them win so consistent, feels
They
like, it
are
feels
they
like,
are winning quite consistently. I know you were hoping
yeah,
Connell would go out this week. We do see
yeah,
some talk go against him. But we'll first maybe talk about some of these Bose tribe dynamics before we even get into the challenge.
yeah,
They're hopeful at this point. They're excited from an exciting tribal council. They're beaming. Keegan almost seems manic at a certain point. Malone tells him something and he just breaks into laughter and starts dancing.
yeah,
Um, certainly some interesting emotions going from that and then to the lows after the challenge.
yeah.
Um, I wanted to talk to you about this idea of or this conversation, I guess, that Sydney, Kristen, and Taylor have directly after the vote, where Sydney is like, "Yeah, he told me that he was going to play this idol, and then he was going to save himself, and Willow was going home, and that I should vote Willow, and all of the dynamics surrounding that." What did you think of that?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting. I feel like it probably fueled some of the dynamics that we saw at the tribal like later in the episode. But I don't know if it was like if Sydney thought about this as a strategic move and as like a way to earn favor with the brains, but I do think um that like kind of spilling the tea about uh what she knew about the vote and like what Malone had told her probably like earned her some favor, I think, with Taylor and Kristen.
Yeah, especially Kristen. We see a
Yeah.
conversation later between the two of them where they discuss that conversation even a little bit more.
Mhm.
I do think kind of if this episode and this kind of sub arc were to have a theme, we have this kind of dichotomy between Sydney as this person who is seemingly trustworthy
Mhm.
and Malone as this person who is seemingly schemy or sneaky or working behind the scenes a little bit more to his own benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think that that's like what an enormous redemption for Sydney, who, like coming into the swap and like was viewed by the brains as the target because of the social game, because of the like strength of the Brawn tribe so far. And so like I think that's a huge redemption for Sydney's
In
social
very
game that
little time.
she's yeah, it's a really quick like in the course of a day, right? Like a single day,
Not
an
even. This
afternoon.
just
Like yeah,
happened halfway through the day. In
yeah,
like 3 hours, she managed to take this tribe that was like, yeah, we need to vote at Sydney immediately. She's brawn strong. She's
yeah.
brawn all the way. She even told us this to, no, I think we can work with Sydney at the merge. It's
Mhm.
important that we keep her. And not only that, but that we keep her happy.
For sure, for sure. And I mean, I think that Willow walked last episode so that Sydney could run in painting Malone as a snake,
After that
right?
challenge, that conversation with Kristen, where they're just kind of divulging everything that Malone has been
Yeah.
sneaky about, really kind of felt like the death nail for me. Um, what did you think of that challenge?
It was fun. I was like, I would be useless. I'm like, I don't remember the last time I did a plank, but some
You can do some jumping
traumatic
jacks. You can
flashbacks. I can
run the
do
travel
jumping.
and back.
You're right. You're right. I could. But yeah, it was fun, and I thought that like, yeah, my head immediately went to like you know, I think that doing the Wordle every day feels like kind of a useless but like joyful thing that I do. But then I was like, this is a practical application of all
We
that
saw
wordling.
I
Whoever's
know
been
you are a
wordling.
Wordle fiend. We saw Eric even shout it out here,
Yes.
thanking his Quirtle and his Wordle skills for being able to help the tribe win that challenge. And he, I think, made the winning guess and had a few guesses
Yeah.
for the right letter. So props to him for that.
Yeah.
Very well done. Very well done on the challenge. Some other kind of interesting Latrans dynamics we can talk through. What do you think of this Latrans tribe so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting how, like, I think it's wise that they have been not, it doesn't, or at least like we haven't seen them game too hard. And I think that like most of their team seems to be sitting uh like sitting pretty comfortably with their wins and not overthinking the social dynamics of like who's going to go if they don't have to, right? If they don't have
When
to
you
go
say
to
most of the
tribal.
team, you mean 6 out of the 7 are like, oh yeah, we're fine. We're just coasting. They're like,
Yeah,
yeah, we
absolutely.
have this built-in scapegoat with Katie. Here she
Yeah,
is. She can go whenever we need her to go. But
yeah.
until then, and at the merge,
They're
we
sitting
like
pretty.
this 6.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, well, is it even it's because does Connell factor into that six?
4
Is
bronze and the 2 belligerents. But yeah,
right.
Connell might potentially, like, if they had to choose a 6th,
Yeah.
probably Connell.
Yeah. Hey, wait, I wanted to ask you about what Chelsea and um oh my goodness.
Eric,
Why do I have no, what Chelsea
Kayla,
and
Katie.
Kayla said about like Katie not wanting to do Girls
Yeah, so there
Alliance.
was this conversation that I ended up cutting just because it was difficult to fit in and
Yeah.
everything, where almost as a way to placate Katie, Kayla and Chelsea are talking about this idea of a girl pact. Oh, you know what? Like, we only have 3 girls in this tribe. We need to stay strong. We need to stay together.
Mm.
And Katie is like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Which, like, fair. I fully get that, especially after season 2, where it was 4 girls from the start all the way to the end. I
But
totally get
that worked for them. It
it.
worked for
Did. It
yeah,
did, but I also get wanting to be original and not wanting to go down those same kind of
sure.
tread gender pathways. Because there was a little bit of hostility towards that sort of gameplay on that season, and I get not wanting to push that boundary and that barrier. But for Katie, I do kind of want to talk about this a little bit more
Yeah.
because Katie first, we see Connell talk to her and is like, "Yeah, are you still tight with the brains?" And she's like, "No." And we also see on this episode that she's not tight with anyone on this tribe really. So currently going into the merge, according to Katie and according to the rest of her tribe, she has 0 allies. She is fully running solo. How do you feel about this kind of position for a player going into a merge?
I mean, I think that she has to know that the brains, like when the merge comes, that the brains will welcome her back with open arms, right? Because they're already down a player now. And so they're down to, they're down
So
2 players.
currently, I guess we can break down these numbers a little bit. Currently, we have 5 bronze still remaining in the game. The only brawn who's gone home is Greg.
Right.
We have 2 belligerents remaining in the game. That is Craig and Kayla. And we have 4 brain remaining in the game. That is Keegan, Kristen, Taylor, and Katie. Those are the 4
Right.
remaining brains. Now we do have next episode. We saw it on the preview. And just for some clarification for everyone watching too, this next episode next Sunday is actually only going to be a little mini half episode where it will be entirely focused on the merge return. We will see the entirety of the merge return challenge, and we'll get to see who wins their way back into the game.
The edge return.
Yes, sorry, not merge return. The egg return at the merge.
Yes, there we go.
We'll get to see who wins their way back into the game of the people eliminated so far. And we'll see kind of how they play into these dynamics. But right now, with this 5, 4, and 2, how do you kind of see this merge potentially playing out?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, I think that like brains working together and staying really true to their original alliance like is working for them. And I think that we're seeing a lot less fracturing. Like Keegan and Kristen and Taylor have voted consistently together. They have been on the same, like, regardless. I think we see a little bit more tension in this episode where, Kristen says, all right, you want to see
Honestly,
Malone gone. I want to see, or sorry, you want to keep Malone. I want to keep Sydney. So we see a little bit of tension, but they still vote together, right? Like,
we do.
they still end up, they're still working together, and I think they're playing the numbers game wisely. And so I think it would only make sense for them to bring, like, to be stoked to have Katie back on board. But of course, they're going to have to if
That's
they
if
want
they
to
bring
continue
Katie
to
back
play
in,
it.
that is still only 5.
Right. And so they're
4,
still
yeah,
going to have
that's
to,
still only 4 because they'll have
yeah,
3 Brains and Katie.
yeah. And so
Um,
they're still going to have to win over somebody from Belligerence or Fracture Brawn to
I
get,
mean, that's still even a tie. They have to bring 2 over
yeah,
to,
yeah,
to beat out Braun,
yeah.
theoretically.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't
we
know.
do
What do
speaking
you anticipate? What do you think is happening? Like,
well,
what do you?
speaking of that, kind of,
Yeah.
we do see on this Latrans tribe, the 6 of them talk like, hey, I think this 6 is super strong. I think everyone on this tribe minus Katie, we can kind of push this into a merge. And they're already kind of plotting that,
Right.
which seems like a strong position for them to go in. We see Craig kind of be the one to bring this up. We also see Craig talked about his chill. We see him making final 2 deals with everyone. What do you think of Craig's gameplay so far in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Craig is onto something because we know that there's a very delicate balance to play in the social game in Survivor, where you want to be well liked and you want to be close to people, but also not so well liked that
Everyone
you're
knows
just a
how well
threat.
liked you are. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, and so I think that it's like, I think the fact that people view him as chill and not like his social game is, or like he's doing it in a strategic way, like that's a pretty good sweet spot to be in so far. I mean, I also think that making a bunch of final 2 deals has the potential to
I
cause
mean,
some,
in fairness,
like,
one of his final 2 deals is gone. His very first final 2 deal got
right.
voted out this episode,
Yeah.
which is an unfortunate place to be for him potentially, though he
Mhm.
does have that kind of built-in ally with Kayla as the
Yeah.
only remaining member of his previous tribe. He's played the whole game with her. I'm sure they'll be closer going into this merge.
Yeah.
I do kind of want to talk about Bose's kind of decision-making process, where it really seems like it is Keegan and at some point Taylor pitching, let's take out Sydney. We need to make sure that we're taking one away from this Braun tribe going into the merge. And Kristen really pitching, hey, we need to keep her. We need to get rid of Malone. He's not trustworthy. Do you think they made the right decision? Would you have made the same decision?
I don't know. I think it's really like, I think that Malone is a really capable player in so many ways,
He's
and I think
the
that,
player of the week like 2, 3, 4 times now or something.
yeah, and he's been, if he didn't win player, if we did not bestow that honor upon him, he was still like a candidate for sure, right? Like, I think he's a really capable player, and I think that despite the fact that he has lost like every challenge basically since being being in the game, like, he knows what he's doing. The idols, like, he's a really strong player, and clearly doesn't has not made any inroads in terms of like allegiances within the Brains tribe, right? So I think that
His
that's,
closest ally at this point is Keegan for sure. And
yeah,
Keegan is the kind of player who's not going to rock the boat to save someone if it's going to risk his other alliances and his other relationships in the game.
yeah, for sure. And so I think that is wise. I think that it's hard to know. I mean, I'm worried about Braun. Like, I think that if they're
We're,
able to,
we
yeah.
know that you're not a Braun fan. This is documented.
You know what? It's just like, I feel like this is all the kids in gym class that were mean to me. You know what I mean? Like, I just like all of them together in one, and then they just keep winning all these challenges, right? Like, they're really doing, like, and I mean, I know that it's not just Braun
I
that's on
think
that
to
team,
some
but like,
extent, not for this challenge as much because I guess Craig and Katie sat out, but like Kayla and Katie were 2 of the strongest members of the Brain and Belligerence tribe when it comes
yeah,
to challenges, and they get swapped with all these really strong Braun people.
yeah,
So like, I don't want to like take all of the onus away from the Bose tribe for losing all these challenges. They were really close in a lot of them.
Totally.
But that was a really strong tribe that they were up against, just looking on paper at like how strong this tribe should be in challenges comparatively.
Yeah, for sure. And Eric pulling through with the Cordals, right? Like, we got
I
some
don't know if
depth
you noticed
here.
this, but we did a little switcheroo between the first part of the season and the swap, where at the first part of the season Eric was retired meathead, and we have switched his Chiron to aspiring Einstein, as was his desire before the season even started. So really kind of showing those brains on that tribe as well. Very good
For
from
sure.
him here.
Yeah,
Early.
and I did love that Connell guessed puddling as a as his first guess for
Yeah,
the
I mean, like how many words fit in that? I fully get it.
yeah.
I do want to quickly pull up a comment from Keegan here. There was a lost conversation, and actually it wasn't lost. I just decided not to put it in this episode because it would have made it way too obvious who was going home here. But it came down to me asking Taylor how much he's talked to Malone game wise, and it was none before that tribal. So Taylor did not see a future with Malone in the game, which makes sense. You've gotta protect the alliances that you seem as most beneficial to you. Taylor saw Malone as someone who wasn't close to him, saw Sydney maybe a little bit closer, and decides to go with Kristen here, and then Keegan swings with them and
For
takes
sure.
Malone.
And I mean, I think it would have been a bad call for Keegan to push it. I think he probably found it. I'm sure he found a good sweet spot with that. Like I think him um, being honest with Kristen and saying like it's nice to have a shield was yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. But I think if he had pushed that too far, I think it would have brought his role as
It hurts his relationships with Kristen
yeah,
and with Taylor, and those relationships are basically the only ones he has left in this game,
yeah.
considering everyone else has either swapped away from him or has been voted out.
For sure, for sure. And it makes a lot of sense for him not to bite the hands that are feeding him so far. And like it makes sense for him to go with like trusting the folks that have pulled him through this far. Yeah.
So before we bring in Malone and Kristen to talk about this episode, I do want to bring up a few quick things about that tribal council as well. Firstly, as an avid astrology person yourself, how did you feel about Malone and Sydney kind of syncing up on this Pisces gang, and bonding over, at least minimally, their shared astrological sign?
I love it. I'm here for it. I think it's great. And again, like, so much of this is about so much of Survivor is about the social and like any opportunity that you can find to find common, yeah, I don't know,
Common
common
ground.
ground with people is
Absolutely.
like the way to do it, right? And I think bringing the astrology stuff up can be like controversial and might like in some circumstances. Maybe there are folks who would have felt differently about Sydney in that case, but I think that the like fun approach that she brings to it
I
makes it,
fully agree. I fully
yeah,
agree. I'd be all on board if Sydney and I shared an astrological sign, but we don't. That's fine. Um, some other moments I want to highlight from this tribal. I really want to highlight how Malone was really giving it all his all up until his final breath in the game, where he's saying, "Yeah, I'm worried about Braun. If they vote me out here, I don't see a winning brain." Really, kind of trying to make these three think of their long term decisions, think about the effects of them, and then pulling out the ultimate Hail Mary and trying to like cause some chaos. Maybe this could have happened before tribal. I don't know. But basically telling Keegan like, hey, implying that they're bringing up his name too, when Keegan's like, the conversations have all been about these two, even when we're talking with these two. But kind of trying to plant that seed in Keegan's head at the final hour, being like, oh yeah, there have been other names talked about too, Keegan. I wonder who those names are if you haven't heard them. Some really impressive stuff from him.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Kristen and Malone now. Oh, I'm hearing a little bit of echo. I think that might be coming from Malone, maybe. Testing. That is coming from Malone. We can hear you, Kristen. I think Malone's fixing his mic here, and I'll unmute him when he gives me the thumbs up. Kristen, how does it feel watching back the season so far?
Honestly, it's so uncomfortable to watch myself in this game. Like it's unbelievably uncomfortable, and I didn't think about this before I signed on to do it. But it's been fun. It's like reliving a really interesting few days. So yeah, it's been fun so far.
Yeah, and I mean, worth pointing out again, this is all 6 of these episodes so far have been a single day, and it's been nonstop chaos the entire time, especially these two here.
It's like a blur, right? That's the thing. Like, especially now, because it's been a little while. So, like, I think for me for sure, but probably for all of us, it's just been a blur, and it's hard to like remember exactly what you were thinking in some of those moments. But you do the best you can.
Absolutely. Now, Malone, I don't think I'm being too controversial when I say it here, but likely the clear star of our pre-merge for this season.
I'll take it.
Someone who has defined the pre-merge for this season, gone out here. How does it feel to watch this episode back?
It sucks so much. I hate it. I don't know. The worst part is none of it was a revelation. I wasn't like sitting there.
Knew everything going on. There's just nothing to do about it.
I wasn't like seeing these conversations being like, oh my God, that's what happened. It was like, yeah. That's what happened.
I'm sure you've been running that tape kind of back through your head the entire time.
Non-stop, 8 months. I could break down everything I did wrong in every episode.
We see a nice little message from your final 2 at one point deal, Craig. I love you, Malone. Very nice.
I'm very happy. I was very happy to see Craig still bringing me up as a final 2 on the other tribe. I was never ever gonna stab Craig in the back, ever.
The only one, clearly. I did want to ask you here because you brought it up at the start. Keegan brought it up, kind of. Very beginning of this episode, he's like, "Well, you took out the right person because clearly she was gunning for you." With some retrospect, do you feel the same way? Because that was all you. That was your decision to make, whether to take out Kristen, Willow, or Taylor.
I think potentially taking Kristen or Taylor out might ended up being a better idea in the long run, because it would have been easier to get the other 2 brains to flip on Willow, I think. But that's still a really big if. It's hard to say. And I'm really glad that I took out Willow because of how salty she was about it. So I would never change that under any circumstance, even if it guaranteed me like final 3. No chance. Worth it.
Kristen, we saw you here pretty steadfast. I want to take out Malone. I want to keep Sydney. Can you talk us through kind of that decision making and why you felt that way?
Well, mostly I felt that Malone would more be with Keegan and potentially Taylor, and that Sydney would more be with me. So really, like, for me personally, that's what it came down to. I also felt that, like, moving forward, you know, we see a strong Braun tribe just in general, and they're going to meet up soon. We know that. And I thought that Sydney might have a spot to be able to, like, try to help me, pull me in a little bit and protect me a little bit moving forward. And I didn't feel at all that Malone wanted to do that or would be an ally for me in the game. So I just, I mean, I think it was the right move for me. Was it the right move for everyone? I don't know. But like for me personally, like, it was pretty like solid on wanting to keep Sydney. And even like from the first moment we swapped, like she was, I was the first person she spoke to when we swapped, and I felt like right away she like kind of gave me information that she didn't give other people, because I think there was a clip that you showed that was like last episode or something of me asking Taylor if she had told him that or not, you know, to see like what level of info, and she hadn't. So for me, I felt like right from the start, whether she was really with brains or not, I don't know, but I felt that like from the moment we kind of met in the game that I could have something with her moving forward. So
for you, it was less about her potentially bringing having a bridge into the bronze or to protect that larger number kind of going into the merge. It was really just about that singular relationship that you had with her and trying to protect that because you saw it as an asset moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw it as an asset in conjunction with her relationship with the rest of the bronze too, you know, and obviously like if we were, you know, if we didn't have to vote Malone off and the 5 of us were moving forward together, like that moving in, we would have been like head to head with the bronze, you know what I mean? And trying to figure out how to flip over on them. But I really felt like with Sydney in the game still in this situation that she might be able to create some room for me with the bronze. So
let's say we have a hypothetical world. in this hypothetical world, you guys know it's puzzling right away. You get the puzzle. Latrans goes to tribal council, quite clearly, likely votes out Katie. Malone and Kristen, how likely is it that you two work together at this upcoming merge?
I feel like I'm not the one to ask.
Malone, would you have wanted to work with Kristen, or would you have potentially looked at jumping ship with Craig over to these Braun people?
My plan A always was to work with the Brain Tribe, ideally without Sydney there. And there, I don't know, there's a chance I would have followed Craig, depending on what he had working over there in the other tribe. But yeah, my goal was always to reunite belligerents and team up with Brains and pick off at least a few Braun. That was kind of my intention, yeah.
Kristen, how about yourself? In this theoretical world, Malone and Kristen are both still in the game, or Malone and Sydney are both still in the game. How does that impact?
If we were all able to, move forward,
all 5 of you make it forward. How do you
honestly? Yeah, I mean, I was at that point grasping for any connection I might have because I was looking at the numbers and like I knew that I didn't feel like I was solid with Katie on the other tribe at all. So I knew like meeting back up, that wouldn't necessarily be a strong connection for me personally. And I know Malone, we didn't really have a chance to work together, but I did, spend some time talking to you and everything. So I think moving forward, I would have been on board to like do that and have those conversations and figure out how to make it work. But it was just the, situation that we were in. There was no real room for that because I just felt better with Sydney, obviously. So.
Gee, I wonder why.
Maybe you should have pulled all those idols.
Yeah, Kristen, I'm curious about that conversation that you had with Keegan, where you were like, "Well, you want Sydney gone, I want Malone gone," like, and Keegan talking about having a shield in the game and being really honest about like keeping someone in that was gonna protect him and keep him out of the limelight. I'm curious, like, how that conversation felt for you and like what that was like. Working with the leader.
Yeah, like Keegan and I have played together before in some online reality games. So I feel like I know
experience. They play together very well.
sorry.
For context, Keegan, Kristen, and I were all in the final 3 of an online game together. They made it to the final 2, and I did not.
But for the record, my boyfriend was in the final 4.
Correct. Yes.
So, anyway, yeah. So I know Keegan well, and I wanted him in this game because I mean you can even see in these episodes already there's been some heat around him and around me, like even from probably more my relationship with him than anything. But keeping him in the game was good for me because people are always going to go for him over me. So then doing something that helps him to stay in the game is good. But we have always had really like rational conversations about the game, so it's not like I knew that he was listening to me, he knew that I was listening to him, and we were just I think able to kind of cut some of the bullshit and be like, hey, this is where we're at and we have different opinions, so let's go talk to Taylor and figure out what he wants, because we know we're allies, so we're going to figure out the best move for us as a group. And yes, I will push for what I want, but would I have gone with what they wanted if it was different? Yes, absolutely, 100%. I'm a good ally. What can I say?
Yeah, that's fair. Well, and that's important for your own survival in the game, right? Like the collective piece is so important. Yeah, that makes sense.
You kind of brought this up a little bit, Kristen, but from literal episode 1, we saw you and Keegan be targeted as this pair from the Braun tribe. How did it feel kind of watching that back and realizing that, oh, hey, we're being talked about right away, even by people who aren't on our tribe?
I found that kind of crazy. Like there were only so many people in the game that would even know much of that, but I knew it would be in the mix. I knew that people would know about it. I actually hoped, like I was glad we started together, because if we didn't, I think that relationship would have been something that would have hurt both of us, and we were able to kind of, work together with it and not, have it work against us right off the bat. But kind of crazy to see how quickly that happened, because I was like, I know barely anyone in this game. I'm going to be just such a nobody. It's going to be great. I'll just chill and, fly under the radar. And then it's like, oh, my name's already been thrown around by people. Oh, okay, cool.
Right.
I just want to say, Kristen, you had a confessional, I think last episode, where you were saying how how much conscious effort you were putting into lowering your threat level and trying to make it that I was totally like, I bought it 100,000%. I had no idea of like the relationship of you and Keegan working together before in ORGs. And I was totally just like, yeah, Kristen and Taylor, they're just along for the ride on this one. Like they're checked out. I was totally convinced, like no clue that how hard you were playing and
I
how far ahead you were thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. And I think even there was some lost footage of like my first night, like, you know, introduction confessional kind of, where I was like, all right, I'm going to just pretend I know nothing, pretend I'm really bad at all sorts of things and play up. Like I'm going to wear pink specifically because I want to be seen as like a girl who isn't taking this seriously. And I want to do all these things. And I think I did it. So yeah. Yeah.
That's so funny because I'm pretty sure on one of the podcasts I was like, Kristen's pink sweatsuit, I'm really appreciating it. I'm like, that is the person I would want to hang out with.
Winning you fans and also lowering your threat level at the same time is a good place to be for a wardrobe choice.
I even like specifically curled my hair before going out because I was like, I want my hair to be curled so that I seem like I'm like just it was a lot of thought.
Honestly, great gameplay. Can't hate on it at all. Very impressive stuff so far. One more question I wanted to ask you, Kristen, before we give both of you your chance to kind of say your last words here. At the beginning on that Brain Tribe, we saw you and Keegan connect obviously very quickly, but we also saw Keegan and Katie connect very quickly. Is Katie someone who you didn't connect with very quickly because you saw her as a potential threat to that alliance, that close alliance that you had with Keegan, or just someone who you didn't gel with?
I for sure saw Katie as a threat to my relationship with Keegan, like 100%. But also, it's weird. Like, I just felt like in the very early days of Brains, she and I just never got a chance to actually connect. It was like every tribal, Keegan was telling me what she was saying and telling her what I was saying. And we never got to have that actual conversation ourselves. So it felt like, I don't know if we ever had a one-on-one conversation until like later. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where I'm like, yeah, it's not necessarily that we didn't gel. It was a little bit that I saw her as a threat, but also we didn't really connect. And I connected more with all of the other brains on the tribe. I worked really, really hard on both Willow and Taylor. And they're obviously people I like as well. But I worked really hard to kind of make sure because I didn't think that I could necessarily build that relationship with Katie. So I wanted to make sure, because we just never really spoke or connected or talked game or anything. So I wanted to make sure I had other people in my corner should, you know, something happen and Keegan choose between the two of us or whatever. I wanted to make sure I'd be okay.
That's wise. That's
Kendal, anything else to ask Malone or Kristen here?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Malone when we started. You said watching it back, you can see like a million different things that you like where the game kind of where some of the mistakes that you made. And so I guess if you could go back and change like one thing, if there was one part of your gameplay that you could
challenges aren't included.
Yeah, not winning challenges definitely.
Well, I would have been on the Brawn Tribe. That's what I would have done. No, it like in retrospect, knowing that I didn't need to, not playing that first idol, it would have been great to not do that because A, it lost me the trust of some of the Brains tribe members, and B, ultimately I would have really loved to have it a couple tribals later. I still think that it was the right move because in my mind there was no way that we're coming back to tribal council 3 more times before. I think that was probably the biggest like one moment mistake. But beyond that, just like I think maybe this is going to sound mean, I know he's listening, but overestimating Keegan and maybe underestimating the other tribe members and just kind of relying on him to do a lot of the legwork in relaying our conversation back to the Brains members. Obviously, we saw both Taylor and Kristen say like, oh, I haven't really talked to Malone. We haven't really talked strategy. Even though they were getting everything I was saying, it does a lot more to, I think, build the relationship to actually have that conversation face to face. And that's probably the biggest lesson I learned.
It's a really, really fast-paced game when you only have 15 to 30 minutes in between tribals, and who you're picking to talk to can be a make or break decision, really, especially in these early parts of the game.
And I really don't think that it's because the episode itself, right? Like I feel like the episodes are longer than what the time actually is that you get to like talk with one another, right? Yeah, and so like it's really quick, and I think again, like you don't know that you're gonna be going to tribal like three rounds in a like in and after 3 times in an afternoon, and I think that like not talking directly to someone in between or after a challenge like once you might be able to get away with, but the fact that like the time and the fact that it's so condensed, I think is really tricky to navigate. You played a great game, a very entertaining game, so
thanks.
I think it goes without saying that we're talking to 2 extremely competent Survivor players here. Malone goes out here, but like I said, played a phenomenal game early, just happened to go to so many tribal councils and get a little bit swap screwed. Thank you both. Do you guys have anything to say before I grill Kendal with a few questions heading into the merge here?
No, all good.
Awesome.
Good, yeah.
Thank you both for joining us. Have a great night. Thanks for watching, etc. Now Kendal. Oh, hold on. I removed Kristen, not Kendal. Or I kept Kristen, not Kendal. There's Kendal.
There we go.
Kendal. Normally, I only have one question for you at this point, and that's player of the game. Or player of the week, I guess. We're going to save that question to the end. I have 2 other questions for you here going into this next week here.
I'm nervous.
So on the edge here, we have Bomi, Justine, Greg, Conrad, Haley, Willow, and Malone.
That's a full cast. This is a lot of
7 people. 7 pretty good people, pretty strong players. Who's making it back into the game?
It depends. It's the worst answer. I mean, it really depends, I think, on what the like edge return situation looks like. Because I don't think we have a lot of context.
Challenge.
Yeah.
Heavily favors people with more cups.
Okay.
And also is a game of strategy and wits.
Yeah, that's interesting. Then I mean, I think that like we haven't seen a ton of the edge so far. We've seen a little bit of it. I think that so I would love to see Justine return. Okay, as I have said, I have made my stance on Justine very clear.
Who do you think's going to return? Do you think?
But I think that based on that, like, so Bomi's been out the longest, and so has had the most opportunity to get cups, and we've seen that he's been able to he's been pretty successful in the edge challenges that we've seen so far. And I think that like how hard he was playing the game.
For reference, Bomi has 15 cups. The next closest player, I believe, has 8.
Okay. So then I'm correct in my
a lot of cups compared to everyone else.
Okay. And I mean, I think that based on the impact that he had on Malone, who has clearly been a very strong player in the game so far, in that one challenge when the edge was playing with everybody else, like I think he's thinking about, like, he knows the dynamics of the game and knows how to play them.
And he's brain tribe. He's clearly smart.
Yeah, and so I would say that feels like the likeliest option, given the context that I have.
He's certainly the favorite going into this edge return challenge, but there is a lot of room for upsets as well. Moving on, I have a second question, and this question will stand for the rest of the game.
Okay.
Kendal, who of the 11 remaining players, you could be spicy and pick someone from the edge as well, is going to win Survivor Calgary Season 3? Do you want me to run through the names of everyone left in the game?
I've got the cast pictures up on my screen. But yeah, let's hear the names so that it gives me a minute. I knew that this question was coming, and still I have not ready for it.
So from the Latrins tribe, we have the 4 bronze of Eric, Chelsea, Connell, Shervin. We have 2 belligerents in Craig and Kayla, and we have the brand member Katie.
That tribe is still completely intact, which is unbelievable. But yeah. Sorry.
From the Bose tribe, we have Keegan, Kristen, Taylor, and Sydney.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Okay. I mean, I think that Kristen's game, like I think that Kristen's understanding of the game and ability to play the long game, and like I think even maybe I'm just being influenced by this conversation in particular that we
He's a
just
very
had.
impressive Survivor player.
Yeah, but I think that knowledge can take you really far, and I think she has played a really strong game so far, and I think like my understanding of Survivor is like somewhat limited, but from what I can tell, like laying kind of low in the first half of the game, being involved, being participating, but not being seen as a threat. I think not having a target on your back going into merge is an important factor. And so I feel like I'm looking at Craig and Kayla and Kristen as players. Maybe Kayla's been a little bit more controversial in some ways and has been seen maybe like not pulling her weight so far, been a little bit sneaky. We saw some of that like really early on. I don't know how much of that has like stayed with her throughout the game. But those are some of my, I think,
Pick
some
one.
people. No!
Pick one.
So hard. I'm gonna say Kristen. Today I'm gonna say it just feels right.
Kristen.
It just
That's
feels
fair.
right. Yeah.
So I actually, as an exercise, when we went to bed that night, I also wrote down my winner pick at this point in the game.
You did? Okay, and
my winner pick from a totally unspoiled Cole was Eric.
okay. And so why was that? Tell me more.
I just thought he had very good relationships with everyone, and he seemed to be on a side that might be a little bit more dominant come the merge. That was kind of my reasoning. I thought he understood the game very well, similarly to what you're saying about Kristen. So those are our two winner picks. Eric, Kristen.
It's on.
They're locked
And you know what? Honestly, I love a word game fan, right? Like I'm on board with that. I would be pleased with that win. Yeah.
All right. Final question for you, Kendal.
Yeah.
Player of the week.
Okay. Are you gonna give
my
me
shortlist
yeah.
contains 3 people.
Okay.
It is Keegan for ultimately deciding to cut an ally to stick with his larger group.
Mm-hmm.
It is Kristen for influencing that larger group to go the way she wanted to and keep her closest ally intact. Mm-hmm. And finally, it is Sydney, almost as a carryover from last week, where her strong social game has totally changed the tide of where she might be going in this game, and she's managed to survive through this tribal council as the lone member of the Braun tribe.
Yeah. Okay. So I do think that Keegan did play a good game, and it was he like struck a good balance in like being clear and honest with his teammates and the people that he trusted about what he was thinking without like pushing it too far. I think Kristen is playing an excellent game. Obviously, I think she's playing it based on the question number 2. But I think that for the second week in a row, I think I have to pick Sydney. I think that the like redemption arc is great.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah. No one that first tribal council, no one expected her to make it this far.
No, not at all. And to make it this far in a really strong position heading into the merge where she has like a lot of options, I think.
She's friends with everyone over on the Braun tribe, and she has these connections that she's formed on the Boast tribe that no one else over on that side will have.
Just like so much social capital going into it. And again, we have seen that she's also clearly like a thoughtful player that knows how to like keeping her idol hidden and not sharing that information. Like she knows how to keep secrets. She knows how to play the game in like a measured way. I think that's going to serve her really well moving forward. And so I think just like the redemption arc kind of coming to, we see the other end of the rainbow or whatever for Sydney this episode. And so I think she's the player of the week. Yeah. And her name was thrown around.
I think I likely would have gone with Kristen. But I fully understand the Sydney pick here. I think she's a very deserving 2-time player of the week so far here. Kendal, we are off next week. We are not talking to each other next week. We don't have too much to discuss with the Egg return other than, hey, this person's back in the game.
Yeah.
But we will be back on, I believe it's May 7th, after a very, very spicy merge episode that I can promise you. I think I'll go on the record and say it is the favorite episode of Survivor Calgary /Wipers I have ever edited. I think it is phenomenal. I'm really excited for it. Kendal, do you have anything to say before we bid the audience adieu?
No, I'm gonna miss you. 2 weeks is so long.
So long.
Yeah. How about you? Anything that we haven't covered? Anything? Any final?
I don't think so. We've been talking for 15 minutes longer than the episode lasted, so I think we've covered pretty much everything. Kendal, great to talk to you. I will miss you also, my season 2 earn buddy, and we'll talk in the future for sure after a very exciting merge episode.
Sounds good. Okay,
Thanks,
bye,
everyone.
Cole.
See you later.
Bye.